Hey Buddy Fighters, today we're having a look at the Drametal deck, but before we get into that, I want to talk about some oppressed rulings and stuff for Drametal. So, let's just get into it. Counteract oppress during your turn. You can pay 1 gauge if you do put this card on your opponent's open left or right. Do keep that in mind. You got to get rid of the monster first, either by returning it with King, which I'll talk about later, or Chotokyo Gambit, and then you can finally oppress or, destroy it during battle because it's a counteract. If this card is on that area, it becomes an oppressed area. An oppressed area becomes your field and no other monsters can be put on it. Okay, so now let's talk about a few things really quickly. So, as it is a counteract, you can use it whenever during your turn besides just the main phase with regular acts. So, again, you can attack, destroy the monster in the left or right, and then pay 1 gauge to oppress. Do keep in mind your opponent has timing. For example, they can countercall a monster in response, and therefore your oppress won't be able to resolve. So, for example, the new Link Dragon Order spell can do that, and you'd have to do that in response to the declaration of oppress. So, as you can tell from the wording, once oppress is successful, it is treated as the opponent's field, or as my field, depending on your perspective. If you're confused, honestly, just reread the card, or, feel free to ask questions as well. And again, left and right still remain the same name, so just keep that in mind. It's still my left, right, and center, but I don't gain an additional left or right from the press or whatever. Just so some people were confused about that, and it was in the Buddyfight Q&A. Anyways, the abilities of Narrow Lance or Argento Lance go off at the end of turn, meaning there is actually no counter timing for an impact after the abilities go off, but of course you still have your counter timing during final phase. You can cast the Drametal Impact, swing with all your oppressed monsters again, and then your end of effects will go off afterwards. And if abilities of a card on the oppressed area are nullified, they lose their abilities, but the area remains oppressed. So unless the ability nullify was done in response to the effect, it will still resolve, and yeah, you're still good, and you'll still have your oppressed area. Of course, you do have to remember that size limit still applies. You cannot have 3 size 1s on your field and then have 2 size 1s on your oppressed area, because that's now a size limit of 5, and that's above the 3 cap that we have. Again, that size limit cap of 3 is still in effect. So, I believe that is about it. It's time to get onto the deck profile. If you guys have any more questions, again, leave them, and let's get on to it. Hey, Future Card Buddy Fighters, you asked for a Drametal deck profile, and here it is. So, we've got Lost Drametal right here. Here's my Lost deck, which I'm going to put to the side for a little bit. But again, we're going to be taking a look at the Drametal deck. So here we have the Secret Gara flag, which I've had just lying around for a while. So I'm like, well, you know what? Why not put it to use in a Drametal deck? And we still don't have a Saiji character flag, which hopefully we'll get later on. But anyways, I'm playing the Buddy Knight Argento Lance foil, which I managed to get a copy of. I don't really want to get the SP Narrow Lance because I don't want to break my wallet just yet. But yeah, definitely really nice card, and I don't know why. I just really like the foil of this card. Anyways, we're playing 2 Lost Worlds for obvious reasons. I've got the Ace playset maxed out that I traded for, which is really nice. You see it's all rainbow and shiny. So it's really nice just because, again, you have 2 copies, and Drametal doesn't have the best draw power in the game, but it's still really fun, and again, being able to oppress your opponent's area and try and gain that advantage while getting free resources. Okay, so we got 4 copies of King to start off the deck, size 3. So in case you don't know what King does, you pay 1 gauge, put the top card deck into the soul. If you have a monster with a press on your field, it gets critical +1, so that ability can stack twice, so he goes up to 5 crit. And again, those stats are pretty nice, size 3, but his size is again reduced to size 1 if you got a press monster. Sorry, a monster with a press on the field, which is the ability, which basically every single one has except for Pawn. And counteract, sorry, just an act. Return a card from your opponent's field to hand. You may only use this ability once per turn. Soul Guard. So again, it is an act. You do have to use it during your main phase. But being able to swing for 5 and then using your item if you really need to stand it again to swing for 5. And being able to return cards you can oppress during your main phase is really nice as well without having to use Chotokyo Gambit because you want the gauges and draws. Anyways, going on to Xian. At first I didn't like Xian, but after testing him out a bit, he proved to be quite useful. 1 gauge top card deck, again you can swing for 5 on your first turn if you got 2 pressed areas, and he actually does become a size 0 even though it has to be originally size 1, so his effect doesn't work with King if his size is reduced, but it's still really great because you can swing for 5, 6 crit, and again, just having him on your center kind of baits out the opponent, and it's a really annoying card they have to get rid of or they're going to be taking massive damage, so really nice card, and again, the artwork for this is just incredible. Okay, now we got 4 copies of not exactly my favorite card in the deck, but Lost Knight Narrow Lance. So, Drametal right here, Lost Vader, 5/2/3, size 1. So 1 gauge top card deck into the soul, so counteract oppress, again, that we went over at the start of the video. And at the end of your turn, if this card is on a pressed area, deal 2 damage to your opponent, and Soul Guard. Oh yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, but with Chess Magic, you can actually move the card, if they use Chess Magic against you. This card is moved from the pressed area from the left to right onto the center, onto your center, which is part of the rulings. Which I'll, again, I'll talk about later in the video. But I mean, there's not really much to say. I just don't like him because I feel like, with the deck being focused around Lost World, I want to get more resources out, so I'd rather have Argento Lance. But again, having that Soul Guard means he can stay on the field if you'd be removed, and that is really helpful. So 4 copies again, because you've only got so many oppressed cards out right now. Argento Lance, which is our buddy, so oppress, a little bit weaker stats, but is a size 1. And at the end of your turn, if this card's in an oppressed area, gauge, gain a life, draw a card. You got 2 of these guys, and then you go Chotokyo Gambit and end your turn with both of them on your field. You are just absolutely golden and going to be getting tons of resources. So I really like this card. It's definitely my favorite card out the deck, just artwork-wise and in the ability, because it gets you that gauge, life, and draw. It's really good. So 4 copies. Bishop, I do play 4 of. I was thinking about reducing him to 3, but you just really need more oppressed cards on your field. And again, Bishop is great because, again, he's got the usual oppressed ability with 2/2/2 stats. But he has an ability of, if you have an oppressed area in your field, all monsters on your field get power plus 2,000 and defense plus 3,000. Meaning you are giving a buff to your entire field. And if you got 2 or maybe even 3 somehow, your entire field is going to be getting that ability stacking twice. So let's say you got 2 on your field, you're getting plus 6k power in defense. You got 3 on your field, plus 9k, even though that probably would never happen. But yeah, it's a good card for those buffs, and especially because Drametal don't exactly have strong stats compared to some other ace decks or double attack. You do need this. So 4 copies. Pawn, I've thought about taking out. I'm going to discuss some other cards I saw on deck lists or stuff I do on sideboard at the end. But Pawn is one of those cards that I was thinking about taking out, but I really like him because he's really distracting to your opponent and annoying, because they cannot touch your oppressed areas unless they deal with this card first, because they don't want to give you that free life and draw. I did see Gara being run in some deck lists, and I did not test him, so maybe I'll change up the deck list. But I really like this because life and draw is real nice, and they have to go after this, or else you'll be getting that for free. Plus, you can grab it from drop with Seiji Kato defense, so 3 copies. And again, I still can't say his name. I'm pretty sure it's Seiji off the new episode. But anyways, we also got Count On. Count On is just really good. Anyways, this is the one from Solar Strife. But he is so good in a lot of decks, and Drametal is definitely one of them. Because he can be put into your basically call from drop. So in this situation, you put him into your gauge and pay 1 gauge for a pass, and just like that, he's in your drop, and you can pay 1 life to keep calling him back with his ability. So at the start of your attack phase, you may pay 1 life. If you do, call this card from the drop zone, and when another monster in your field will be destroyed, you can put this card in the drop zone to keep it on the field. And those 4/1/1 stats, he goes up to a 7k power with Bishop, which is really nice as well. So being able to keep calling him back and protect your cards, sorry, not your cards, your monsters on your field is really great. Okay, so 3 of the item. Why am I only playing 3? I find that with 4, you just get into it too much, and I really hate having just card in my hand that's just either dead because I have 1 on my field already, or just because it's just in my hand, or it's just useless in the current situation. I just don't really find the card too helpful. And yes, you could go with aggressive. I see some more like aggressive kind of style Drametal decks, but I'm just going to kind of keep it simple, and 4 is too much for me, so I keep it at 3. But again, it's got the ability, which I kind of forgot to mention, but very simple from the anime. Choose a Drametal monster in your field, you rest this card. If you use stand the chosen card, then if the card is the card that was stand is on an oppressed area, deal 1 damage, and 5/1. So being able to burn 1 and stand your Drametals is really great. Okay, 4 copies of the MVP, and definitely my favorite art out of all the Drametal cards, Chotokyo Gambit, aka Gambit 2.0. So you only cast this card if you have a Drametal on your field. Choosing to use one of the following 2. Return all monster opponent's field to hand. So all monsters on each player's field to hand, including your own. And again, this is an optional, so everything gets bounced. And counteract, put the top card deck in your gauge and draw a card for each of your oppressed area. So if you have 1, you're going to gauge and draw. If you've got 2 oppressed areas, you gauge and draw 2. Which is really great, especially when you're trying to draw into like Lost World, or maybe you can grab into some more resource cards within the deck. So it's just a really good card. 3 Starjack Boost. Why am I playing Starjack Boost? Because you need the gauge and draw. I get we're getting the gauge 3 in the new Japanese card that was revealed, if you haven't seen it on Buddy Spoiler or on the wiki. But I mean, this card I think is just too good to pass in this kind of deck, especially when you don't have as many gauge and draw cards in Drametal compared to other ace decks. And a lot of the time, especially with Queens oppressing and Buddy calling Argento, who is our buddy, which I put away, and other effects, you're going to be gaining a lot of life. So you'll usually, like 80% of the time, be in that 7 or more life range. And I mean, free gauge and draw is just good. 4 is a little bit too much. 3 is basically like the golden amount. Okay, now we've got 2 copies of Visible Light. You need the gauge. I thought about running 3, but then I don't really think the deck needs it as much. And yes, I did have some situations where I didn't have enough gauge for Lost World, but I didn't feel like running 3 was necessary, and I felt like I'd just brick into it way too much, so I'm going with 2 copies. Okay, 4 copies of Queenside Castling with 1 really nice foil. So, we got 4 copies again. So, Queenside Castling. You only cast this card during attack opponent's turn if you have a draw metal on your field. Counter, nullify the attack, and you gain 2 life for each oppressed area. So, if you got 2 oppressed areas, nullify attack, and you gain 4 life, which is absolutely incredible. Again, being in that high life range for Starjack boost, and it really makes your opponent kind of have to second guess whether if they really want to go for you if you've got this card in your hand. And again, if you play 2 or 3, you're going to be gaining 8 life, 12 life, not that you're really only having 3 in hand, but it is a pretty great card. I have had times where I've just had like nothing but 3 of these in hand, which is annoying. And by the way, if you're playing Drametal, you want to make sure you're shuffling your deck really well, just so you know. Anyways, so we got 4 copies of Queenside Castling. Then we've got 4 of probably another of the MVPs of the deck. Most valuable should be MVC because most valuable card. But we got Seiji Kaido Defense. So choose use one of the following 2. Choose a draw metal on your oppressed areas for this turn. Sorry, on your oppressed areas. So basically, it's saying one of the 2. For this turn, if it would be destroyed, it remains on the field. So basically, if it would leave at all. So if it can, how do I explain this? So basically, it's a continuous stay on field. Kind of like Dragobond, but you don't gain that 2 life, and it's 4 turn, essentially. And this is really great because you can combo this into pawn. If they decide not to attack pawn and try and just take out your oppressed areas as fast as they can, then you can use this, but it still counts as it being destroyed, so you still gain the life and draw. And also the second ability of grabbing any draw metal from drop zone back into your hand is really useful. So 4 copies definitely is what you need in the deck. Okay, we've got 2 copies of Phase Seal Chains. Phase Seal Chains is one of the cards I thought about maybe taking out, but with so many decks just having multi-aggro decks, like multi-attacks, I guess there is Buddy Block, and you could switch that out, and maybe I will, but currently this is the best out there. And yes, some things do have another attack phase card, but this is really great to shut down some aggro decks, so yeah, 2 copies of it. At the end of your opponent's third battle during your opponent's attack phase, as it says on the card, you get to end the attack phase, which is definitely going to save you. Okay, we've got a copy of Ultimate Buddy. Sorry, Buddy Option, wrong card. Buddy Option right here, you can basically choose a Buddy on your field, give it 5,000 power, and penetrate, or you can put it into Soul of a card of your field, and it basically prevents all of your cards from having their abilities nullified. So again, getting another Soul into Narrow Lance is really nice, giving that 2 Soul, or you can use this to just throw and get some extra defense, and again, having that ability null is pretty nice as well, and that 5k power buff and penetrate can sometimes be clutch as well. So 1 copy of that. It's the only one I got, and I don't think you really need to run any more than that. Shining Rain. This card is getting reprinted, in case you didn't know or haven't seen on Buddy Spoiler. It's honestly pretty clutch sometimes, and it's definitely really helpful in the deck. It is actually from the very first Star Dragon World trial deck from Buddyfight 100, but you basically can only cast it during your opponent's turn. And when they cast a spell, you pay 1 gauge and 1 life and nullify it, and this is sometimes really helpful, especially because Obstruct isn't exactly a thing anymore, and I thought about running 1 copy, but I'll talk about that later. It's just a really good card, and if you can play it right, it can definitely ruin your opponent's day. Okay, we've got Prismic Bless. Why do I play this? I saw some other lists running this. I decided to test it for myself, and I definitely love this card. Just like, you have so many multi-attackers, there really is no reason not to use it, and I've had lots of time where I've used this and grabbed Lost World. So essentially, it is a Prism Dragon card, but it is kind of generic and doesn't require Prism Dragon on field to cast. You only cast a card during your opponent's turn. You counter, look at the top card of your deck. Look at the top cards of your deck equal to the number of times your opponent's cards have attacked during this turn. Put a card from among them into your gauge, put up to 2 into your hand, put the rest of the bottom deck in any order, and you gain a life. So counter, you can gain a life, gauge, grab hand cards. Again, it is only +1 gauge at max, but this is really clutch because you can use this in response to on-attack abilities or in response to their attack because you do have timing. So again, knowing your counter timings is really important for this deck, and essentially you can, because now you can use more than 1 counter per battle, you can essentially use this and try and grab into a Nullify, or maybe Seiji Kaido Defense, or something else, whatever you need from your deck, or maybe even Lost World, so you can try and come back against your opponent. So yeah, I really like it. I've only got 2 copies. I think I saw some decks playing 3, but I really like the card in the deck, and I've only got 2, and it's good enough, honestly. Okay, now getting onto the Lost World deck. This is really just a basic Lost World deck. Nothing too fancy, but I'm going to quickly go through it. We got 4 of the Trial Deck Vanity. I'm sure you know what this does by now, so I'm not going to go over it, but just a really solid card right now. And again, I don't exactly have or can really afford a secret Vanity right now, and neither do I really care much. You got Dugain Zyx, and that's covered up by the Ultra Pro sleeve. Let me just blank that. So 10-10, double attack, 1 gauge when this card enters the field, nullify all boosted card in opponent's field and destroy it. I mean, it's just one of the really good Lost World cards out there. It can take down Excel Blades. It can take down really a lot of stuff. It's not exactly invincible, and it's not going to guarantee you something, especially if they'd have nullify to destruction and abilities. But it is a really great card, and again, having that double attack and great stats. So 4 copies definitely right now. 2 of this that I randomly traded off, which I decided to put in because the Lost World monsters are kind of limited right now. So yeah, I managed to trade this. It's not the greatest card, but it's 10-4-7, Oxidius Arcalige, and with Carnage Field, or gets destroyed, destroy card in opponent's field with Penetrate. So 4 crit Penetrate, 10,000 power, which is nice. And when it enters the field or is destroyed, you just get to pop a card in your opponent's field. Again, that's annoying, and it is really helpful as well. So yeah, 2 copies of him right there. 2 copies, if I can read this name, oh my goodness. Lost World monsters are impossible to pronounce, I swear. Arpo Perlar. I think I somewhat said that right. Anyways, he's a 2,000 power, 20,000 power, not 2,000. 3 critical, 10,000 defense. So call cost, put up to 2 cards from your job zone in this card's soul and pay 1 gauge. With Penetrate, Double Attack, Soul Guard, and Counterattack. You call this guy to your center, he's basically going to be a beast and protect you, and he can hit really hard as well, and he's got crazy stats. So yeah, 2 copies of him, the only 2 that I have. White Festival, I might switch this card out because I'm not too enthusiastic about it, but it's really interesting because it's got that Soul Guard and it's only 1 gauge to call. And again, that 8 crit at 8,000 power has just got you great offensive stats, so 2 copies. 1 copy, the only one that I got, Dimension Draw. Honestly, if you really want to max out your Lost World deck or can afford it, you can go for 2, maybe even 3 if you really got to. Honestly, I find 1 to be enough, and I somehow top decked into it, so it's good enough for me. 4 Dimension Revive, just because I can call Lost World monsters back from drop from my gauge cost, or instead I can call an oppressed monster back from my drop, let's say like Argento Knight, and then oppress their left or right, and then get that gauge life and draw off at the end of my turn. So yeah, plus 2 crit, really nice, and if you can use this into Xeon, and if you are just set up and got oppressed monsters in your field, you can basically get plus 2 crit, which brings them up to 5 crit, and then if you got 3 size 1s, that's now 8 crit that your opponent can't be nullified, so yeah, fun. So 4 copies of that. I'm still thinking about running Dimension Absorb, but I was going to see if I could trade someone for it. But I've got 4 copies of Dimension Mirror right here, so only cast this card during attack opponent's turn if you have no monsters on your center. You get to nullify the attack and deal damage to your opponent equal to the number of attacking monsters. So again, with Drametal, you are burning damage to your opponent and definitely want to, get them in a really bad situation and then try and hit them hard. And Dimension Mirror is definitely helping with that, especially when you're really trying to chip down on your opponent's life. And let's say they call something like Blast Mode or Cosmo Man, even though Cosmo Man's an item, so the ability wouldn't go off. But let's say they're attacking with something like Blast Mode, nullify the attack, and you burn them for like 4 damage, and they're dead. So yeah, it's a nullify too, so 4 copies, because it helps you with that burn damage. Okay, classic 2 copies of Dimension Jamming, because that's all I got. I mean, there really isn't any explanation for this. Really, I don't need more than 2, and it's just a good card because you get to get rid of cards in your opponent's hand. 2 copies of Dimension Livestream because you need life, or I don't know, you're playing against Link Dragon Order, take their life down to 10, so 2 copies. And then my most questionable decision yet, running 3 Carnage Destroy Blasters. Because I feel like with Drametal, there's a lot of the times where my opponent's at low life and I want to just take them out. And again, this card is no gauge, unlike Zero Blazer, and Zero Blazer requires 2 Lost Vaders. So just like, okay, you're 5 life or less, I get into Lost World, okay, you're dead now. Carnage Destroy Blaster. So yeah, it can be reduced. It's not that OP, but I mean, free 5 damage, I'll take it. So yeah, again, your opponent does have to be 5 life or less, but Carnage Destroy Blaster, just say goodbye to your life points. So yeah, that's basically it. Nothing really too special, but I think the deck is really fun. I'm going to see if I can get some plays with this game, maybe some games, and get them recorded. Plays with the games, plays with the Drametal, same thing. And yeah, I think this deck is a lot of fun. I'd probably say it cost me around maybe 80 US. I don't want to say exactly, but it's not too expensive of a deck. I'd probably say only get into it if you really enjoy it. I don't think it's some top meta deck, but it's a lot of fun to play, and it can keep up with some of the top decks. So yeah, and also, Gara flag. I gotta obviously flex this on people. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please do consider to leave a like, subscribe, or whatever. And yeah, tell me if you really enjoyed the format of this video. I know it's really long, but I like to go through everything and talk about, Buddyfight in general. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, have a great day. See you later. Hey, so before I go, I just want to talk about something really quick about some techs and other cards that I saw in deck lists and stuff like that. First card is Gara, and this was an interesting card because it gives you a little bit extra offense, either be crit or penetrate and power. I found this an interesting tech because some of them were actually running it instead of pawn. I personally just don't like it because I feel like I want to get the draws in again. I'm focusing on Lost World, so I definitely want that resource gain. There's also Chess Magic, which is an interesting generic spell that allows you to move an opponent's monster from their center or left. From their left or right onto the center if it's open, which is really nice as well, so you can take their left and right. You also have Tractor Beam, which is an interesting card that can bounce a monster, but the cost is a bit heavy. I haven't tested it out. Maybe I'll try it out in the future, but I don't really like it. And yeah, moving on. Fate Information, you get to check top 3 cards of your deck, add up to 1 monster or item from among them into your hand. Has to be size 2 or less monster though, so you can't grab King, but it's still a pretty interesting card, but I haven't tested it out and I don't think it's really needed, especially because I don't want to take a Lost World out there and then get in and drop and not be able to grab it. Star Believer is also something interesting. I couldn't get my hands on it, but if you can, you get rid of a soul from either a King or an Arrow Lance because you remove a soul from a card in your field, and then you gain a life and draw 2. You also have Sudden Wormhole, which is a pay 1 gauge to call from hand or grab a size 2 from drop into your hand, I believe. And then Neo Dragon Protector is another one. Sudden Wormhole and Neo Dragon being 1 gauge. It's just that Drametal are really tight on gauge, and especially because I'm playing Lost Drametal, I didn't really bother. But maybe I'll try out Sudden Wormhole one day, especially because if you feel like you can't get the Drametals back fast enough, and then instead you could tech maybe 2 at max. I'd probably just say go for 1 with Seiji Kaido defense. And then of course you've got your classic Loyalty Obstruct and probably Buddy Block coming later. But yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you to those who have sticked around for a while. And yeah, I think I'm done. Have a great day.